well informed about the happenings in your backyard. And to make things even more exciting, our special guest, Miss Paige Mason, will talk with us about Women's History Month. Trust me, you won't want to miss what she's got to share with us. But before we jump into all this excitement, here's a quick message from our sponsor.
Sponsorship for Southern Miss Today comes from Mississippi Beverages. Mississippi Beverages provides water, water coolers, and coffee service throughout South Mississippi. Take half of your weight in pounds. That's how many ounces of water you need a day. Mississippi Beverages can help you reach that goal by delivering fresh water to your door. To get more information or to set up a cooler and water delivery, you can call Mississippi Beverages at 601-271-2420, or you can find them online. Sponsorship comes from American Graphics. Located at 8 Commercial Warehouse Drive in Hattiesburg, American Graphics provides custom screen printing and embroidery. They can be reached by phone at 601-602-2277. And the website is goamericangraphics.com. American Graphics, printing at its finest.
Welcome back to Southern Miss Today on Southern Miss Radio. In USM campus news, students are concerned about the safety of stray and feral cats on campus. For years, students have been taking care of these cats in their unofficial Feral Cat Society. It's a group that all chips in into getting the cats spayed and neutered. Julie McLean, a member of the society, said they volunteer, donate, and it all comes out of their own pockets. Another member announced that a week ago, 2 dogs came to campus and killed the entire colony of cats that the society members fed. The groups want the dogs caught in order to save the other cat colonies left on campus. Despite the full workload in the classroom, this group has a heart for animals and remains dedicated no matter the cost. If you'd like to donate to USM's Feral Cat Society, they've created a GoFundMe. USM has chosen Dr. Gregory Woklane as the director of orchestra activities. Woklane will conduct the symphony orchestra as it begins its 105th season and will oversee the graduate department by conducting. He will fill in shoes of Dr. Michael, who retired after more than 16 years of service to Southern Miss. Woklane has taught all levels of public school and college-gate education. For instance, he also serves as the music director of Middle Tennessee's acclaimed Gateway Chamber Orchestra that he co-founded in 2008. Over the past 15 years with the GCO, Woklane has sought to revolutionize the potential of the 21st century orchestra. USM is more than excited to have him in the School of Music. Get ready for the online speaker series featuring Toyona Ali on March 26 at 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. She is a senior of lecture at the University of Georgia and founder of the digital education and media company called the Academic Society. Ali will go into depth about her life journey while providing tips to college and graduate students. Through the Academic Society, she has written a book and created online courses on time management, productivity, and self-care. Ali is currently a teaching mentor for graduate students and new faculty members. She has redesigned a course in her department and was awarded 2 teaching awards. Meeting registration is required via Zoom link. If you have any questions, send an email to chrissy.hudson@usm.edu. In Hattiesburg news, Hattiesburg Public School District held a teacher career fair on Saturday that offered all positions to candidates. This was the perfect event for Hattiesburg, considering the battle of a teacher shortage in Mississippi. Hattiesburg is hoping to fill between 15 to 20 positions in elementary school classrooms, as well as teachers for math, science, and special education. The districts host the career fair every March in hope of exciting, interesting teachers to come to local schools. The assistant superintendent said recruitment will ensure students' success. He then said this event is key in getting those new teachers into our particular school system to better educate our students. That's your news update from Southern Miss Today. Next, we'll have the latest in sports and weather, so stay tuned. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Sponsorship for Southern Miss Today comes from Mississippi Beverages. Mississippi Beverages provides water, water coolers, and coffee service throughout South Mississippi. Take half of your weight in pounds. That's how many ounces of water you need a day. Mississippi Beverages can help you reach that goal by delivering fresh water to your door. To get more information or to set up a cooler and water delivery, you can call Mississippi Beverages at 601-271-2420, or you can find them online.
Melissa from Michigan. I work an extra part-time job serving lunch at my child's school, but I still can't afford to put food on our table.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back with our action-packed sports segment. Put your jerseys on because it is game time. Baseball split a doubleheader at Georgia University on Saturday afternoon. Carson Beto had hit 2 points in each game of a twin bill. Southern Miss dropped the opener 13-1 in 8 innings before defeating Georgia Southern with a score of 9-4. Baseball's next game is tomorrow at 6 p.m. against Tulane at Pete Taylor Park. Softball will also have a game tomorrow at 6 p.m. against the University of Alabama Birmingham. They play them again at 8 p.m. in Alabama. Southern Miss Lady Eagles showcased their historic performances in overtime in the WINT win on Saturday night. Dominique Davis and Rakora Barcy scored the game's first 26 points and combined to score 58. The Lady Eagles survived once again and move on to the Super 16 of the 2024 postseason WINT. The game finished with 19 lead changes and 15 ties as both teams battled for full 45 minutes. In a 78-67 overtime win over Murray State at Reed Green Coliseum, many people were excited and overjoyed. Women's basketball next game is against ULM on March 27th. Men's tennis will also compete on March 28th at 9 a.m. in James Madison. Head to southernmiss.com to keep up with all of our Golden Eagle sports activities. USM takes great pride in its Golden Eagle athletes, celebrating their achievements on and off the field. As for your weather today, it's currently 69 degrees, but it's windy. There's a high of 73 and low of 56. Temperatures are expected to rise to the low 70s this afternoon. Starting at 4 p.m., we are going to have some heavy rain that will continue until tomorrow morning. Drive cautiously and carefully on the roads and keep an umbrella on you. Up next, we have the Mississippi Moments, produced by the Center of Oral History and Cultural Heritage. Check it out.
This is Mississippi Moments, produced by the Center for Oral History and Cultural Heritage at the University of Southern Mississippi and supported by the Mississippi Humanities Council. I'm Bill Ellison. Growing up in Rosedale, Mississippi, Stanley Ferguson's house was surrounded by cotton fields. He remembers watching the airplanes fly overhead and his decision to become a crop duster.
You know, I had been interested as a kid in the crop dusting around our area. Had an opportunity to go to work for one of the local crop dusting services there when I was 16, and I took that. So I started working around the airplanes, and then from then on I was hooked. Got my license in March of 1975. Been flying ever since. Late 75, I went to work in Shelby, Mississippi for Christmas flying service. It's been a good business. One of the things that Mr. Charlie told me then was that it wasn't going to make you rich, but it would be a good living for you if you were good at it. And he's right, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong. It's just like anything else. If you pay attention and do a little pre-planning, it's a good business. And it's a business that you just have to want to do. It really is not something that you can go do because of the financial part of it.
To hear more, visit MississippiMoments.org or just like us on Facebook. Mississippi Moments is supported by the Mississippi Humanities Council. The humanities are for everyone.
That was your Mississippi Moment for today. Coming up, we have the pleasure of hearing from Miss Paige Mason, so stick with us while we hear a message from one of our sponsors.
Sponsorship for Southern Miss Today comes from Mississippi Beverages. Mississippi Beverages provides water, water coolers, and coffee service throughout South Mississippi. Take half of your weight in pounds. That's how many ounces of water you need a day. Mississippi Beverages can help you reach that goal by delivering fresh water to your door. To get more information or to set up a cooler and water delivery, you can call Mississippi Beverages at 601-271-2420, or you can find them online.
My simple solution to the problem was remove people from the scene and help them feel safer.
In response to attacks against Asian Americans, Maddie Park raised over $250,000 to donate cab rides to the Asian community.
There is so much more work to be done. We really need to come together and tackle this issue as a community.
Support the Asian community. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
Welcome back, everyone. We have a special guest with us today. She is a current USM graduate student who is highly educated in women's history. Please give a warm Golden Eagle welcome to Paige Mason. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
Of course. Can you start by telling us about your current research on the women's jury movement that happened during 1950s to 1960s?
Yeah. So my thesis research has looked at the women's jury movement in Mississippi. Mississippi was actually the last state to allow women to serve on juries in 1968. A lot of people don't know about it. I didn't know about it before starting my research. But women's organizations across the state, like the League of Women Voters, spent like decades advocating for jury service for women. And so that's what my research looks at.
That is interesting. I did not know that. What inspired you to have the academic research and learn more about it?
Well, the topic was presented to me by my thesis advisor, Dr. Turi, and she brought the topic to my attention. And like I said, I knew nothing about it. And the other two states were Alabama and South Carolina. I'm from Alabama. So I really was interested in why those three states didn't allow women on juries till so late.
Well, can you go into more depth of what it was and why?
Oh, yeah. Well, it kind of came out of the women's suffrage movement. So suffragists were talking about jury rights, but it was kind of put on the back burner. So once the 19th Amendment was ratified in 1920, yes, sorry, and there was like organized jury movements across the country, and they occurred at the state level. They weren't nationwide movements, but they were all over the country. And by like 1957, all states allowed women on juries except for South Carolina, Alabama, and Mississippi. So my research kind of looks at why it took so long to have women on juries in Mississippi. And there's a few different reasons. Just misogyny. The civil rights movement was kind of used as a talking point for opponents of the movement, and that's kind of what my research looks at.
So you get all the answers about this.
Yeah.
I read that you're the guest speaker for the Baird Lecture Series on campus. Can you elaborate on the significance of your panel?
Yeah. Well, I was able to get the Baird Fellowship this year through the Center for the Study of the Gulf South, and it funded my research over the summer, so I was able to visit the University of Mississippi and the Mississippi Department of Archives and History. And going through the archives at both of these places, I was able to see that women's organizations really were at the forefront of the women's jury movement. And so that's kind of what my lecture looks at, just how these different organizations work together to fight for jury rights.
Is there something that motivated you to give people an insight on this topic?
Well, I really want people to come away, first of all, with a knowledge of the women's jury movement, because a lot of people don't know about it. But I also want people to recognize what a privilege it is to have that right, because for so long, so many women didn't. And it's often seen as like a burden, jury duty is. It's kind of a joke. But it really is a privilege to be able to serve on a jury, and I want people to come away knowing that.
So I know as a graduate student, it may be hard finding sources and getting your research. So what would you say, what kind of sources do you get?
Well, I used mostly primary sources for my thesis research, but archival, I was able to go through the archives and find correspondence, periodicals that touched on the women's jury movement. I've also used some secondary sources, but mostly primary.
Have you encountered any challenges with accessing these sources?
Yeah. Thankfully, due to the Baird Fellowship, I was able to travel to visit archives, but it definitely is a limitation. Newspapers.com was a great source, which the library here has access to. But it is definitely restrictive when it comes to finding sources.
Okay, great. So I have this one question. It's a long one.
Okay.
How do you hope your research on the women's jury movement will contribute to the ongoing discussions within the fields of women's history or political history or Southern history?
Oh, wow. Well, specifically on Southern history, I think there's this idea, like during the 1950s and 1960s, that women were just kind of like housewives, especially in the South. But through my research, I was able to find out that women really were active and believed in women's rights. And I'm sorry. Can you repeat the first part of the question?
Yeah, how do you hope your research will impact political history or Southern history?
In like political history, I'm surprised that there hasn't been more scholarship written on the jury movement because it was so significant. And so I hope that my thesis and my research contributes somewhat to that.
So how do you balance researching and also having an engaged audience and letting them be interested in showcasing this is important and you should learn about this?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Well, during my lecture, I'm having visuals, which I always find helps kind of show people like this. These are the people. This is what also was happening at that time. So I hope they see that. I also hope they see the connection to the civil rights movement because this is so significant and it gets lost. Its connection to the civil rights movement gets lost. So I hope my lecture is able to show that jury rights was a discussion that was happening for not only women but for minorities as well.
How does it connect to the civil rights movement?
Well, opponents and supporters of the women's jury movement often used the civil rights movement as a talking point for why people should support or oppose women's jury rights. And the more rights minorities gain, the more women gain. Like, it was kind of that kind of talking point. So
they're intertwined.
Yeah, they are, definitely.
Are there any other areas related to women's history that you want to explore next?
Well, my first thesis topic that I had, before I kind of had to put it on the back burner, because again, your earlier question, sources, I had trouble finding sources related to it, was looking at Southern Baptist women and the Equal Rights Amendment. So that's something, a women's history topic that I would like to explore next.
What would you say to someone that has no idea what women's history is, they don't know the importance of it, and they don't really care too much to learn about it? What would you tell them?
Well, women's history is like history. It's great that we have, a designated month devoted to women's history, but it really is, when you do research, you realize that women have always been here. They've always been active. They have always been making change. Maybe their names weren't recorded, or we don't have physical evidence that they were, but they definitely were, and I hope that people recognize that.
I think you're doing an excellent thing here, and
Thank
you're
you.
researching about it. I know it probably isn't easy to find all these sources.
Yeah, there's definitely been gaps in the archives where I've just kind of had to fill in the blanks, so to speak. So it has been difficult, and like I said, there hasn't been much scholarship written on even the nationwide jury movements for women. So yeah, it's been a challenge for sure.
What would you say is the main focal point of your presentation? And what's your presentation called?
We will not give up on this until we get it. Mississippi Women's Organizations and the Long Fight for Jury Service. It's kind of a mouthful, but yeah. Well, we won't give up on this until we get it. It's actually a direct quote from my research. That one of the league members, the League of Women Voters, their members actually said that, like years into the movement, about how dedicated they were toward the cause. So, yeah, that's what the overarching, theme is.
Yeah. So what day is your presentation?
March 26th, tomorrow. Yeah.
Oh, and what time?
6.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it in the library?
It's in the Liberal Arts Building, room 108.
Okay, perfect. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you'd like to share about women's history or the importance of this month?
There's a lot, just while I have them on, there's a lot of different events going on through the humanities department on campus, so I think people should definitely check those out. Not just mine, but there's a few others this week, so there's still time left to learn more about different parts of women's history and different parts of Southern women's history.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any future goals or anything else you want people to learn about your research?
Well, I'm a master's student, and I'm hoping to go into public history, but I would like one day to somehow use my research and use it in a public history setting, so that the general audience, not just like academic or, scholarly research, that, everybody can learn about this.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're an excellent speaker. I think you could go even on TED Talk and do a whole presentation about it. Is that something you would like to do?
Public speaking isn't my favorite thing to do, but yeah, I'm excited about my lecture, but yeah, I don't have any plans to do anything like that.
Are there any women in your life that motivated you to study women's history more?
That's a good question. Well, I grew up with a lot of older aunts, and just hearing them talk about their experience was always interested in me as a kid. And I guess that's why I was always interested in women's history and not just, something else.
Yes, hearing and seeing stories from family members, I'm sure that's something else that impacted you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, how can we contact you?
Well, you can get in contact with me through my Southern Miss email, which is paige.mason@usm.edu. And yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, and you gave us so much education and advice about women's history. A lot of people don't know about it, and they may not care to know about it, but after everything you've said, I think they're going to be interested, and they're definitely going to want to see your presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Of course. Coming up, we've got a community calendar.
To kick off Women's History Month, a professor on campus started the first chapter for Mississippi of an international organization for women. It is called the Association for Women Geoscientists. The organization had its first official meeting on campus on February 29th from 12:15 to 1:15 in the Chain Technology Center. Dr. Allison Brent has more to talk about the organization.
I started this organization with a couple of other professors from around the state. We decided that the state of Mississippi needed an association for women geoscientists. It's an international organization that promotes geosciences for women.
In the meeting, they went through an inventory of what they should go over, like email addresses, logos, scholarship, and even nomination for president, secretary, and more.
It's our first meeting, so we're very excited that so many people showed up from around the state, as well as students here from USM, and we're excited about the turnout and excited about the prospects.
There were representatives from across the state, including Delta State, Mississippi State, Jackson State, and Ole Miss. Membership is open to anyone who is major in geoscience. If you are interested, please go to awg.org and sign up or contact Dr. Allison Brent at allison.brent@usm.edu for more information.
Thank you for listening to Southern Miss Today on Southern Miss Radio. Thanks to our audio engineer, Justin Ware, and our live stream producer, Cullen Rogers, for keeping this bird flying. Big shout out to our assistant producer, Anna Lee Johnson, and Sonia Woods. Executive producer, Ohari Adair, program director, Shania Williams, and our general manager, Dr. Martin. That wraps up our show for Southern Miss Today. Thank you for tuning in, and remember, soar high to the sky and fly, eagle, fly. I'm your host, Kennedy Drake, signing off for